Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Punaktu Sahaviryam Karva Vahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvisa Vahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May He protect us. May He sustain us. May we grow in strength together. May our study together be fruitful. And may we not hate one another. Oh, peace, peace, peace. So good evening. And welcome to the class. Swami Yeshwanand is in California, so he won't get back till Friday, so I'm taking the class tonight. And it's on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, which Swami Yeshwanand has called Panchama Veda, the fifth Veda. Now we're familiar, we know of the four Vedas, but what does he mean by fifth Veda? Now back in ancient times, when the rishis were there and when they were having their spiritual experiences, spiritual discoveries that led to the Vedas, the Upanishads, the scriptures of Hinduism, it wasn't just a cut and dried, closed process. This process went on for centuries. And actually it's interesting that the Vedas, the spiritual revelations that we find in the Vedas, they went on for centuries before they ever got written down. Nobody actually knows how old they were, how long they started. What we have now is just a small percentage of what was existing at one time. And so, but it was a continuous, ongoing process that each sage or each spiritual person or guru would make his own discoveries, have his own experiences, his own revelations, and he would pass it on to his disciples. They in turn would pass it on to their disciples. And like that it was going on and on. And so the revelation, the revealing of the spiritual dimension of things, it didn't stop with the Vedas. It's been going on ever since then. And periodically you see a great soul, an incarnation or a great God-man will come on the scene and bring a new light, a new expression of that one truth, that one reality. And so as you look at history, you realize that the most powerful people in the world have been the great spiritual teachers. It's not the kings or the conquerors or the warriors, it's those people who have attained the realization of this higher reality. Because not only are they in the history books, but their lives and their teachings have inspired men and shaped their lives for centuries. Christ lived 2,000 years ago, Buddha lived, even further back, and other incarnations, as their teachings have formed the basis of the morals and ethics and spiritual truths that have influenced millions of people over centuries. And so anyone who attains this truth, no matter to what degree, becomes a spiritual teacher. He attains this knowledge. He glimpses beyond the veil. Now, simply back in Swami Vivekananda's time, when he came to the Parliament of Religions back in 1893, practically the only really kind of, you could say, spiritual movement going on in India at that, or in America at that time, was what's called spiritualism. This was, holding seances, trying to contact those people who had passed on, who had, left this world and gone on. And it was very significant in America because nobody at that time knew anything. Everybody, there were many religious people in America, many very devoted, sincere religious people who sincerely believed, yes, after you die, you'll go to heaven, but nobody knew. Nobody could say, that I've actually pierce the veil. They called it piercing the veil. I actually know what's beyond this life, what's beyond this world, because I've seen it. And so in America, even these seances and things, they're trying to contact departed spirits of their family, mothers and grandmothers and so on. This was a kind of a great achievement, because it gave some evidence that yes, there actually is something there. Otherwise, it was all just talk, all just kind of faith. Swami Vivekananda said in one place that even the person who's seen a ghost is better than a theologian, because at least he knows something there. He actually, yes, he knows. He's got some concrete evidence. And so these great sages, saints, and so forth, all the mystics throughout history, they've done this tremendous service of being able to pierce the veil, of being able to go beyond just this worldly existence and discover what's there. And if not for that, we wouldn't know anything. Man would be living in complete darkness without any idea that there's something beyond this world, something beyond this physical existence. That Swami Vivekananda said in one place that the God-realized men that we realize, that we hear about, the incarnations, he said they're a very small number. That there have been countless others, God-realized souls, that have lived on earth that we never heard of. They just sat in a cave somewhere or just quietly talked to their disciples. He said, but because the earth has had these God-men, has had these people who have discovered this truth, he said, all of mankind has been uplifted. He said, if not for them, we would have descended to the level of the brutes. Meaning, we would have thought there's nothing more than just physical mortal existence, and wouldn't have been able to conceive anything higher. When a person like Sri Ramakrishna, he realizes that dimension, that spiritual truth, he releases a light, a force into consciousness, into spiritual consciousness, which spreads throughout the consciousness of all of the rest of humanity. Somebody who's touched God, who's even in a small way, he becomes like full of light, and that light automatically lightens up everybody he comes in contact with. It spreads out. We don't realize it, but whatever we are actually always broadcasting to the world. If we're full of all kinds of negative things, anger and hatred and all that, people feel it, they sense it. They don't know why, but somehow they don't like you. They feel, well, there's something wrong with that person. Same way if a person is very good, a very fine person, full of love, and people sense that too. And they just, some people you meet, you're just happy to be with them. You feel very kind of safe and comfortable with them. Other people you don't trust at all. This is because what we are is actually, on a subtle level, is kind of broadcasting out to everybody else. Now, somebody who's realized God or attained some high degree of spiritual consciousness, that's what's broadcasting. And that then uplifts and kind of lessens the burden of all of other people, of all the people they come in contact with. So the real work of the incarnations, like Sri Ramakrishna, is not in his teachings, Sri Ramakrishna, as you know, he was illiterate, he never wrote a book, his teachings were just recorded, conversations with his disciples that were recorded by him, and what we now know as the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. But he never tried to really, start a movement or things, but his presence in the world, and that realized state of consciousness in the world is uplifting all humanity and is working throughout the world. It's not working just as the Ramakrishna mission and all our centers and activities and things, but it's really working subtly, lifting consciousness up, so that you see the things, the truths which he brought into the world, the truths which he and Swami Vivekananda brought into the world, you see them kind of popping up all over. You know, not just what we're doing, but other groups, other people, they're picking up these ideas. When Swami Vivekananda went to the, spoke at the Parliament of Religions and said, "Sisters and brothers of America," as you know, the whole crowd automatically stood up, gave a big ovation. It wasn't the words. It wasn't the words that he spoke that caused that. It was the tremendous spiritual power that was behind those words, that came out of those words, and when he spoke those words, the world changed. It became a different place. And this is what, as you look at the life of Swami Vivekananda, so many of the things he did, so many of the things he believed in, were very original and daring, kind of new in his day. But the idea of monks performing service, of women having education, all these things that he believed in, the interfaith and harmony, all these things were very kind of new in his day, but now we see it's become commonplace. That's because it's been working itself up. It's been like percolating, and now it's beginning to come more and more into expression. So that Parliament of Religions, back in 1893, and Swami Vivekananda's, his talk there, some people have referred to the Parliament as a watershed event, meaning that after it happened, the world was a different place. Before that, nobody thought in terms of interfaith harmony. Nobody thought in terms of religions actually coming together on the same platform, speaking peacefully, trying to understand and appreciate each other. But after the Parliament, then the whole process of interfaith dialogue and all this began to spread into the world. And now we see that throughout the world, there's strong interfaith activity going on. And so this, like I said, when we read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, we're not reading just about a particular person or a particular teaching, but the advent of kind of spiritual light into the world. And so this gospel that we read, like I said, it's a Panchama Veda in the sense that it's an additional revelation, an additional bringing of light into the world that came with Sri Ramakrishna. Now that light which he brought into the world, that light is within each and every person. That light is deep within the essence of everybody's consciousness. And it is accessible ultimately to everybody. You know, the ancient sages, when they gave their teachings, they never said that this is what what has been revealed to me, this is what I know, and you have to believe it because I'm a sage. They always said, this is what I've experienced, but you can experience the same thing yourself. And this is what each of the sages, each of the great spiritual teachers is trying to do. As Swami Vivekananda said, his goal in life was to reveal to all men their own divinity. Now he could see that divinity. He was aware of it. He was aware of the true nature of each and every person. And so he knew kind of what glorious beings everybody was, but he also knew that he was covered over by ignorance, that people weren't aware of who they are. They weren't aware of the glory that was within them. And his main purpose in life was to reveal that divinity to others, to all of mankind. And so this is what's going on in the world, is everybody has that divinity deep within their own inner consciousness, their own inner spirit, but they're not aware of it. And so what we're trying to do through all our experiences ultimately is to become aware of that again, to be able to uncover it and to manifest it. And he said, this is to first uncover the divinity within your own soul and then try to express that into the world. And this is what we're all trying to do. But when we get into the world, and when we get into matter, then we forget. We forget who we are, we forget where we come from, and then we just kind of wander around here. And so having someone who actually knows the truth is kind of a great blessing, a great benefit to the world. When Swami Vivekananda, went through his period of wanting to know, if anybody had actually seen God, nobody could say, yes, I've seen God, until he came to Ramakrishna. And then Ramakrishna said, yes, I see God just as clearly as I see you, only much more intensely. And that's a very rare thing. Like I said, throughout human history, it's very rare to have somebody who can actually say, yes, I've actually seen God. I know from my own experience what God is. Like I say, in America, he was almost totally lacking, totally unavailable. In India, there's been a long succession of like sages and saints and things throughout the centuries, and that's kind of helped. That's kind of created an atmosphere there. Yeah, I remember last time I went to India, when I came back from India, I stopped in London on the way back. I remember I was sitting there, sitting on a park bench, thinking something was wrong. Something just wasn't feeling right. And then I realized that, for the last few months, I'd been living in India, and there's just this spiritual energy there. That no matter where you go, you can feel it. And I realized that now that was lacking. That before, it was like there was a spiritual light there, very close, but now it was like there was a brick wall there, just nothing else. I remember every place I went, when I went to India, we'd go to the different centers of Ramakrishna Mission, and every place, center, you would go there, and you would feel, there's this presence here, there's kind of a welcoming presence there. Now, one time when we were on our way to Ranchi, where they had the TB sanatorium, and we had been in Jamshedpur, so we took a taxi from Jamshedpur to Ranchi, and the taxi driver, he didn't know where Ramakrishna Mission, TB sanatorium was or anything, so he asked around. They go to the other cab drivers in the area, and they ask around. And so the cab drivers, they directed, we went to this place way out in the country, far off, and got to this TB sanatorium, and the driver dropped us off and left. And then immediately, as soon as we got there, I realized this isn't right, because the feel of the place was just very dark and gloomy. I'm thinking this must not be the right place. And then it turned out it was a government TB sanatorium, and we were just stranded there, like miles out in the country. But then fortunately, the head of the sanatorium, he just happened to be driving out at that time. He was going to a dinner somewhere, and he saw us, like 4 American brahmacharis standing there, and so he stopped, and then he found out. So then he canceled his dinner. He took us. He gave us some dinner. He called it the Ramakrishna TB sanatorium, and one Swami Sarvalokananda, I think, he came and he collected us and took us back. But there's a definite presence of the divine that spiritual people who realize that they bring into the world, that they create an atmosphere that makes it easy for other people to get a sense of the reality of God, that there's actually something real there. And this is the idea behind a shrine, that when people regularly do worship in a shrine, they regularly meditate there, and then when you go into that place, it's full of kind of good vibrations, and people feel it. They feel a certain peace. I remember when I had a friend, Ron Kidd. He was one of the early executive directors of the Parliament of Religions, the Buddhist background, and he's a teacher, teaches comparative religions and things in school. And so he used to, and it's become common now, that all these world religion courses and things, it's a requirement in almost all the courses that they have to attend a service in another religion. And so he used to send some of his students to the Vedanta Society, and then they would come back and write a report on what they experienced. And one time he sent me 6 or 7 of these reports that the students had written after visiting us, just for my information. And he said these were just ordinary American college kids. They didn't know anything about Hinduism, meditation, anything else. But yet every single one of them, it said, I felt very peaceful there. And just, so that is something that communicates itself, that people feel and they sense, and then the reality of God. The reality of spirit becomes something real for them. Now, Sri Ramakrishna had the capacity to communicate the deepest types of spiritual experience, just by mere touch, or just by being in his presence. People would be uplifted. So he was so intensely powerful. When you read about his life, and you read about all the tremendous austerities and powerful kind of spiritual practices he went through, these aren't things that an ordinary person has to go through. They're not, in order to realize God, you don't have to go through all the different things, all the tantric practices and all these other things, these sadhanas that Sri Ramakrishna did. But because Sri Ramakrishna was a world teacher, because he had came into the world in order to uplift people, he had to become, kind of create this tremendous amount of power. And it's a very difficult thing. Swami, to be able to contain that kind of power, to be able to contain it in your nervous system and your mind and everything else, is just extremely difficult. Swami Turiyananda said that once, later in life, he accidentally got a shock, from my electric outlet. And then he said, after all, I used to get something like that every time I touched Ramakrishna. That was, it was so intense was his spiritual, this power, that it would be literally felt. So when Sri Ramakrishna gave his teachings and things, it wasn't just words. It was never just empty words. He was always this transmission of kind of a spiritual light and spiritual consciousness. One place, Swami Vivekananda, the real spiritual teaching is something that can be given, transmitted, just like giving somebody a gift. It was a solid thing, not just words. And that is what makes the difference. That once somebody asked Swami Turiyananda, he said, "What's the difference between when you give a lecture on Vedanta and a college professor or somebody else that gives a talk on Vedanta?" And Swami Turiyananda said that when somebody else, the ordinary person, gives a talk on Vedanta, it's just words. It may be very beautiful words, very, very wonderful words, but it's mostly just words. But he said when we talk on Vedanta, it's like the veil of Maya is being removed. And so only those who have connected with God, who have realized God, who have become united with God, have the power to truly kind of save or uplift other people. Again, Swami Turiyananda mentioned one place that unless a person has complete surrender to God, he's not capable of kind of giving spirituality to other people. He said he may keep his oratory, he may keep his charisma, he may keep other things, but unless there's a connection, unless the person has become united with God, he can't communicate it. Now, as soon as anybody becomes united with God, he becomes an instrument in the hands of God, and God's power, God's love, His grace is able to flow out, and it can have tremendous effect in the world. We as human beings are very limited in what we can do and what we're capable of, but God is infinite, and when we connect with Him, become united with him so that we become like a transparency through which he flows, his consciousness flows, then it can, there's no limit to what can be accomplished by him. As I said, when you look at history, you see the most powerful people in the world have been the various spiritual teachers who have just started something, started a course of things that has gone on for centuries, and that people not only read about in history books, but it actually changes their lives, uplifts them. So in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, we're very fortunate to have access to the conversations and teachings of somebody who has actually realized God. Like I said, when I first came across the Gospel, that was the thing that I think struck me more than anything. It's the fact that somebody who was actually constantly in the presence of God, constantly experiencing God, becoming united with God, going into ecstasies and things like that. And I found that when you read the Gospel, there was like a connection made, or something. So it was like you would be going almost into a magic world, into a whole different world. And after reading the Gospel, I found that I suddenly just understood everything about a religion. It's like Ramakrishna, and this is one of his unique things, was so broad in his practice of religion and his teaching that it's like everything fits into it. There's nothing is left out, nothing is rejected. He never says, this is right and that's wrong. It all kind of finds its place. But I always feel like other teachings, it's like you get a piece of the pie. But Ramakrishna, you get the whole pie. And then each person, you can take your particular slice, which one you want. So he had that tremendous broadness, and nothing narrow about it. He never said, it's only Krishna, or it's only this, or it's only that. He always said, yes, all these things are true. And as Swami Vivekananda said, at the Parliament of Religions, that each individual, we're all on our kind of own individual paths towards God. In each one, we're approaching God in our own particular way, but we're all going to the same place. And this was the essence of Sri Ramakrishna's teaching, that all religions have the capacity to help a man find that God, find that spiritual truth. And so, that even like the most superstitious religions, even those have the capacity to serve people at a particular level. In other words, for people who are in kindergarten, you don't teach calculus. You have to start off with some very simple stories and things like that. And people, they can appreciate that. If you try to talk high philosophy, 99% of people, they won't appreciate it at all. But it's like, gradually as you grow from lower grade to higher grade, you're gradually getting higher and higher versions of religion. But it doesn't mean that what you believed before was wrong. It was like a step in the process. And so, as Swami Vivekananda said, every soul is potentially divine, and we're all struggling, trying to realize that divinity, trying to be able to express it and to manifest it in our lives. And so, very few, like I said, very few at any time, very few people have the actual direct experience of the divine, have that actual capacity to bring a person to the divine. And Sri Ramakrishna had it probably more than practically anybody else. And so, as I say, the gospel is just made up of his conversations to his disciples, but fortunately we had him, and Swami Shantananda has talked about him and the role he played. And it's interesting that him, when he first came to Sri Ramakrishna, was going through a great crisis. I think he was almost on the point of suicide. He had a lot of family problems, a lot of problems with his in-laws and all. And so he was kind of in a very desperate state when he met Sri Ramakrishna. And it's often kind of a part of the spiritual process. He said, we're only really ready for God to come when we're really desperate. So it's often when a person is in kind of the deepest problems, the deepest difficulties, that finally they're ready to say, okay, please God, you just come take charge. Until then, we were saying, I'm in charge. I can handle this. I'll do it, and we're busy with it. But so it's the revelations often come only when a person has really reached some kind of desperation. You remember the story we read a while back about a non-dual devotion, David Hawkins' book? How he talked about how when he was a paper boy, back in, I don't know if all of you were here then, that was in our, I think, our meditation class we did that. But he was a paper boy back in Wisconsin, and there was like a 20-degree below zero blizzard going on. He said 17-mile paper route he used to have, and he said this huge blizzard was there, 20 below zero with a tremendous wind, and he said his bike fell over on the ice, and his papers blew all over. And finally, just to get out of the wind, he created a little hole in the snow, and kind of a little cave. He got inside, and he said he was just had tears of frustration and pain and exhaustion and things. But he said once he got in there, suddenly he felt this great warmth and this great peace. And he came in contact with this tremendous love, this tremendous light, this tremendous love that he recognized as being not different from his own essence. And suddenly everything was just fine. And he realized then that there's no such thing as death, that his real self, his true self, was this thing that he'd come in contact with. And then later he felt somebody shaking his knee, and he looked and he saw his father there. So then he said with great difficulty, it's very hard for him to leave that experience, come back to the body. But because of his father was so worried and suffering, he did it. But like that, it often takes some really desperate point when we're able to kind of shift and try to open ourselves up so that higher truths can go through. Remember Sri Ramakrishna's life, how he was praying and praying for the Divine Mother. And finally he said, he took the sword off the wall of the temple and said, I'll just commit suicide, if I can't realize God. And then this is when Divine Mother appeared. So it's often takes some kind of real difficulty before a person's ready to let that higher consciousness come in. And but when you have spiritual teachers, they help the process. They make it much easier. We don't have to go through all the struggles that Sri Ramakrishna went through. Like he said, I've done the whole Anna, you do just 1/16. We don't have to do through all those tremendous struggles because he did it. Once, I think it was Swami Prabhupada. He was, as you know, he was Swami Brahmananda's attendant. So they were very close to Swami Brahmananda. And he got the urge to go, lead Belagat, to go up to Rishikesh or somewhere and do austerities, do meditation for a while. And Swami Brahmananda, got upset because he was very close to Swami Prabhupada, and he didn't want him to leave. And so he got very upset. And he said, no. He said, don't you realize we've done all that for you? All this sadhana and things we've been doing, this is for you. And like Holy Mother, all her sadhana, she did tremendous sadhana, but it was always for her children. She said, so many people come to me. One of her attendants noticed she wasn't sleeping in taking rest in the afternoon and all, even though she was ill. And one of her attendants asked her why. She said, don't you, so many people, she said, so many children come to me and they take the mantra and then they never do anything. But I'm responsible. I have to do it for them. So this was, Sri Ramakrishna, whatever he did was done for the good of the world. For the good of, he didn't come here to attain realization or to attain liberation or anything else. He didn't need to. But he came just to uplift people, to make it possible for people to realize. And there's a spirituality has come into the world which wasn't there. It's gradually been coming in, but I think the world, the consciousness of the world is much more spiritual than it was previously. So these great souls, Ramakrishna and all his disciples, they all came not for their own sake, for their own liberation, but in order to uplift other people and to make it easier for other people to reach the goal. And just to see, one thing is that when a saint or sage, when he reaches realization, when he discovers this wonderful spiritual dimension to things, when he discovers this tremendous spiritual truth, then they feel compassion for other people. Because they look at the world, and from that standpoint, they realize, oh, how much suffering is going on. And we think, oh, I'm fine. But actually, from spiritual, in the eyes of a spiritual person, you're not fine at all. You're miserable. But it's just we don't know it. It's so natural that we just think, oh, this is as good as it gets. This is normal. But actually, for the spiritual who realize this wonderful infinite bliss and things that they see humanity, all humanity as basically as suffering, as being limited. I was when I was in St. Petersburg. Recently I was there about a week ago. I was talking to one lady, one of the women there, and she'd been there. Like a lot of their devotees there, they go way back to the Reverend Panton. He was a disciple of Swami Nikhilanda who started it back like 50-some years ago, a long time. So they've been there a long time. But she said she had come to St. Petersburg, this is back in the Reverend Panton time, and after, she'd been living out in New Mexico, and she had some type of, and now she's on kind of crutches and things, but she had some kind of terrible crime happen that harmed her a great deal, injured her, I think, physically, emotionally, everything, I don't know. She didn't say what it was, but anyway, she came and she was just kind of very gloomy. I mean, very, very, in very bad shape. And when she met Reverend Pantheon, he told her, he said, look, you've suffered great damage in your body, and you've suffered great damage in your mind and your emotions. He said, but you're still the child of God. And she said at that point, all the darkness and the gloom just disappeared from her mind. And this is what kind of true spiritual people can do. They see people suffering, and they know that, oh, that's actually the child of God there. That's actually a wonderful spiritual being there, and they can then kind of help him get beyond all the darkness, all the illusion of the Maya. So, like that, in this, Sri Ramakrishna, when Holy Mother, at one point she was, after he left the body, she was thinking of leaving the body, thinking, why go on living? And he appeared to her, and he said, don't you see, the people of Calcutta, which was his expression for ordinary kind of worldly people, don't you see they're like worms crawling in the dirt? You have to uplift them. You have to help them up. And so it's that desire to save, desire to lift up, to relieve the suffering. People, this is what Sri Ramakrishna came for. This is what he brought into the world. See, from the most ancient times, you know, the most ancient sages up to now, we know that there's kind of this wonderful divine consciousness there, divine reality there. And we know, particularly in Hinduism, not in some other religions you won't find it, but in Hinduism you know that it's there within each person. It's there potentially within each person. Yeah. And Swami Vivekananda says, you know, each soul is potentially divine. So, and this is what we're all trying to do, we're all trying to express that. And sometimes, like great souls or God Himself, they come to earth in order to help, in order to kind of relight the spark and to give new life to spiritual things. Yeah, I've learned that if you want to understand Vedanta or understand, you know, Hinduism, that the place to go is to people who have realized the truth, who have experienced, like Sri Ramakrishna, his disciples, Ramana Maharshi, other great realized souls, because their teachings are always simple and direct. You know, throughout Ramakrishna, you don't find any high philosophy, but you'll find an understanding of even the highest philosophy, but stated in very simple, easy terms. Terms that make you, parables and stories and things that make you can not only appreciate, but to be inspired by it. It's not kind of abstract philosophy or dry, you know, metaphysics. There's a living thing, because the spiritual teachers, they're all trying to give that knowledge. They're not trying to impress with their learning or anything else. They're just trying to communicate this wonderful truth to others. And so this is what you find, that if you want to understand Vedanta, you want to understand Advaita Vedanta or others, the place to go really is to the teachings of the realized soul. Like Sri Ramakrishna, any of the disciples, if you study their conversations, it's very clear, they're very direct, kind of what spiritual life is like. And this is something that is very useful, because a lot of people, we don't understand what spiritual life is like, what it's supposed to do. I said, particularly in America, nobody knew. Up until the influx of Hindu thought back in the 60s, the whole kind of inner mystical part of religion was almost not there. People just didn't know anything. And so having these instructions and having them in ways that make sense and that inspire is kind of great benefit. So Swami, he's going to be studying now the Gospel for some time now in Patagon, and the words that you read in the Gospel there, like I said, they're actually living for us. That, makes religion, you know, come alive, be something that really matters, that really kind of opens the doors. And so as you study it, just remember that in Sri Ramakrishna's room, in his presence, you know, there was always, it was like a living, burning fire of realization. And it's bound to have its effect on, like I said, throughout the world. He brought, not only did he come, but he brought with him all his direct disciples and others as part of that mission. And so they have brought this a new light and a new force, a new power into the world that we see is working itself out, slowly transforming human consciousness and changing the way things are. Okay, so Swami Ishadnananda, he will be back Friday, and then Friday, he'll come back Friday night. Gets in about 8 o'clock, and then we have a regular class, Katha Upanishad Friday, And then I think we have the Shivanam, I think is going to be on Saturday. I'm trying to think, on Sunday, no, on Saturday itself, yeah, Swami Ishatmananda, he goes to the Hindu temple, where at 11 o'clock he'll give a talk on Shankara, and then Sunday he'll continue then with his talks here on the meditation, theory and practice. And then later in the month we have Swami Brahmarupananda coming. He'll give the retreat at Ganges, I think last weekend in May, on Sri Ramakrishna's teachings in 8 aphorisms by Swami Harshananda. So all this is coming, so thank you. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurmam Amritam Gavya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O Lord, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om peace, peace,